This is Amber Stearns, and I will be presenting my History of Education in America biography about Bill Nye the Science Guy. As an introduction, we're going to talk about who is Bill Nye? Where did he grow up? What is he best known for? Why is he important to education? The ethical dilemma that has plagued his work, as well as what he's up to now. Let's start with his family and childhood history. Bill was born in November of 1955 in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. His mother's name was Jacqueline Jenkins, and she was a significant part of history herself. She was a member of the Goucher Girls. Goucher College was founded in 1855 by a group of Methodists as the Women's College of Baltimore. The Goucher Girls was a group of 12 scientifically minded young women from the Goucher class of 42. The Navy recruited them to help crack Japanese and German military codes during World War II. Their group was highly top secret, and their existence was not well known or publicized until much after the war. Bill's father, Edwin Darby Nye, served his country in World War II and went on to work as a contractor. While in the service, Ned was captured and survived 4 years of isolation in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. Having lived for some time in isolation, Ned taught himself how to use and tell time using a shadow of a shovel handle. His works and his passions would inspire Bill Nye in his future endeavors, working with sundials and with science. His siblings, Edwin and Susan, are not highly published and led very private lives. He attended Sidwell Friends High School on a scholarship and graduated in 1973. Two very famous quotes from Bill Nye were, "The more you know about the world, the more opportunities there are to laugh at it. And to leave the world better than you found it, sometimes you have to pick up other people's trash." Some current events of the time that took place and influenced Bill Nye's development were the Soviet Union launching Sputnik and the beginning of the space race. The United States and the Soviet Union were in extreme competition and were heavily embroiled in the Cold War during his early years. The Vietnam War was an expensive, long-term conflict between the government of North Vietnam and South Vietnam. The countries were involved in intense discourse, and the United States and the Soviet Union were involved and were heavily impacted. The rise of the workers' unions, was also a hot topic during this period of time. The CIO, or the Congress of Industrial Organizations, and the AFL, the American Federation of Labor, separated during this time because they believed in and supported the industrial unions and the craft unions in different ways. Many years later, the two organizations would come back together and work in tandem with each other. The civil rights movement was also in full swing, and Black Americans were working hard to gain equal rights under the law in the United States. Racism, segregation, and the lack of full and equal human rights were issues that caused a huge rift in society and in education during this time. Higher education and career development. Bill Nye is an American science educator and a mechanical engineer, best known for hosting his television programs, Bill Nye the Science Guy. After he graduated, Bill Nye studied mechanical engineering at Cornell University, and he spent much time working and learning from his mentor, Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan was an American astronomer, planetary scientist, cosmologist, astrophysicist, astrobiologist, author, and science popularizer. He inspired Bill to continue his work and follow in his footsteps. After graduating with his bachelor's degree in science and mechanical engineering, Nye moved to Seattle and spent many years with the Boeing Company there. Some major life events and turning points. Eventually, Bill began to perform and write for television shows. After winning a Steve Martin look-alike contest, he began his career in comedy. He worked as an engineer full-time and a stand-up comedian at night. He quickly became a full-time comedy writer and performer on a news show called Almost Live. During a last-minute cancellation on the show, he got his big opportunity. He quickly put together a piece called Household Uses of Liquid Nitrogen. He was quoted as saying, "I roasted marshmallows in nitrogen and breathed smoke out of my nose after I ate them. I froze an onion so it sounded like breaking glass when I cut it with a knife. The studio audience thought it was funny." And with that, Bill Nye, the Science Guy, was born. Some notable accomplishments. Bill has many notable accomplishments that impact education. Founded by his mentor, Carl Sagan, Bill Nye has served as the Chief Executive Officer of the Planetary Society. The Planetary Society is one of the largest space interest groups in the world. Bill serves as the public face of the Planetary Society and has done so since 2010. As an influencer, Bill works in acting by making TV and film appearances, as well as writing. He is well known as a teaching scientist. He's worked and completed many documentaries, Google Talks, and podcasts, as well as participating in Dancing with the Stars. His father's passion inspired him to develop sundials that were used in the Mars Explorer rover missions. Students around the world, as well as science enthusiasts and professionals from the community, know Bill from his many famous works and pursuits. He's also a fellow of the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, which is a scientific and educational nonprofit organization that promotes scientific inquiry and critical investigations. As an author, Nye is concerned with the issues of scientific illiteracy and wants to encourage the teaching of reasoning in the scientific inquiry. Along with his TV programs, Nye has written several children's books and adult books about space and science. He published Undeniable: The Evolution and Science of Creation. Then he published Unstoppable: Harnessing Science to Change the World. He's also written Everything All at Once, where he said, "Thinking like a nerd is the key to changing yourself and the world around you." In his book, Everything All at Once: How to Think Like a Science Guy, Solve Any Problem, and Make a Better World, Nye uses his own experiences to illustrate life lessons and discusses how everyone can make the world a better place using science. Bill Nye is also a well-recognized public speaker. He presents his ideas and is recognized all over the nation. He's spoken at many commencement ceremonies, as well as receiving many awards, including the 2010 Humanist of the Year Award from the American Humanist Association. He's also known as an inventor. He holds several U.S. patents, including ballet point shoes and an experimental magnifying glass. He has won 19 Emmys and personally won 7 other awards for writing and performances. But there is an ethical dilemma involved with his infamy. Is Bill Nye really a teacher and a scientist? Although he's been honored by many universities and is adored by millions around the world, there is still a controversial issue. Is he a comedian or an academic scientist? The impacts he's had on education, nationally and globally, have been apparent. He holds several honorary degrees and is a highly regarded speaker and climate change advocate. He is self-taught and has worked with many famous scientists in the field. The argument against is that he does not have an advanced degree. He has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, but that does not, some say, qualify him with the title scientist. Honorary degrees do not require any actual study, and his popularity is based on entertainment value, not work in the field. But how is he viewed by the public? Based on information received in the 1997 and 1998 outreach study, teachers, students, and parents were asked one simple question: is Bill Nye a comedian, or is Bill Nye a scientist? The impacts he's had on the education community nationally and globally are most apparent during a study that was done when promoting the newly created Bill Nye the Science Guy. He hosted the show, which aimed to teach science to a preteen audience. The big concern right now in science education is that facts are easy to get. What we want is for students to be able to separate the wrong ideas from the good ones. Each episode focused on specific scientific topics. These shows were still a valuable resource for schools and teachers. As you can see, based on the research, 10% of the people that were surveyed thought that he was just an actor. 56% viewed him as a scientist, and 34% were undecided. In order to truly determine the impact that Bill Nye has had on education, you have to look at different aspects of his work. As far as community outreach, during this study, he created 30,000 lunchbox science kits that were sent directly to students of the poorest schools in the nation. They also sent 150,000 teachers' guides to fourth grade teachers. The remainder were distributed to individuals who requested them in the community, like organizations such as Girls Inc. During the focus group investigation, at-home and at-school study kits provided projects, experiments, as well as supplies that went along with the shows. Kids and adults alike were inspired and entertained by Bill and his instruction. Teachers were better able to keep students engaged and interested in the curriculum. Exposure to the mundane topics became more easy and enriching. Bill was intent upon getting kids into science, with an emphasis on including females. He believed that more women need to be involved with science, and based on the market study, his methods were effective. He also had other television shows that were more focused on adults and aimed at older audiences, especially Stuff Happens program on the Planet Green Network. He's hosted 100 Greatest Discovery shows and had much debate about climate change and the idea of creationism. So on a national and global level, Bill Nye has written and produced television series widely shown both in schools and universities around the world. He presents globally to promote the planetary research, science education in schools, equality for women in science, the reality of global warming, and the fantasy of creationism. He's the current CEO of the Planetary Society, and his goal is to empower the world's citizens to advance space and science exploration. A video, though, is worth 1,000 words. You can always see the magic of Bill Nye for yourself. In conclusion, Bill Nye's impact on education is a unique one. He has spent his life dedicated to the understanding and education of humankind. Bill has challenged ideas and the way that people think. He does this with levity and a sense of humor that inspires people to pay attention and ask questions while being happily entertained. In his own words, Nye explains it by simply saying, "I'm trying to save the world." Thank you.